What's up guys, welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host Caleb. Today we are going to take 25 cards out and put 25 cards in the Master of Evil's Precon, and we're going to do that all on an extreme budget. I would like to thank my high contributing patrons, Newsome, you rock. Additionally, if you pick up any of these cards, using the TCGplayer link in the description down below will not only help me out, but you'll get the cards you want. Now, let's get into this deck tech. First, we need to decide what commander we're going to use, and this guy's the face commander, but we're not going to be using him because honestly, this guy's just amazing for a different strategy. Running this guy as a Dragon's Approach commander is going to be extremely busted. He is probably the Dragon's Approach commander, but again, that's basically a completely different deck, so we're going to throw him in the 99 and we're going to run a Shad. I like a Shad here because he synergizes amazingly with all of the artifact creatures in the deck, and he can even double up our mana rocks and stuff, so he's going to be pretty busted once we get the value engine going. And we're going to pair him with, funny enough, a lot of the Necron cards from the Commander 40k Universes Beyond. Two Universes Beyond decks combined, and it's going to be busted. There's a ton of Necrons that synergize amazingly with bringing artifacts from the graveyard to the battlefield, and since there's a lot of high-costed artifacts in this deck, I thought it'd be pretty cool to run this as a Reanimator strategy. That way we're not footing the cost of those massive creatures. So if that sounds like a deck tech upgrade you want to get into, let's get into it. Kicking it off with the upgrades, the first thing we added was Mishra. I like this guy because we can reanimate our non-creature artifacts. That way we can chip him for damage, and then we have something to sacrifice to our commander. That way we aren't losing any important creatures to that casualty ability. I also couldn't help myself. I added Gonti's Aetherheart. Now this goes infinite with Mishra. Usually whenever you create a token copy of a legendary thing, you have to sacrifice it because it has the same name. But Mishra changes the name of that artifact, so now you can essentially have two Gonti's Aetherhearts on the battlefield. Now that we can generate 4 energy every time an artifact enters the battlefield, all we have to do is build up to 12 energy, and we can consistently take extra turns with Mishra and Gonti Aetherhearts on the battlefield, resulting in infinite extra turns. The next thing we need to do is create bodies. Necron Monolith, Biotransference, and Imhotep the Stormlord can be really solid at creating those 2/2 bodies. That way we can sacrifice them to our commander, doubling up on our artifacts. Brutaclad is also a really solid way to do this, not to mention he can create token copies of our most broken artifact, which is also going to be, again, extremely busted. Thought Monitor is solid. It just enters the battlefield. It's going to draw us 4 cards if we create a token copy of it with our commander, and then we can easily sack it to the casualty ability, so it's solid for 2 things in the deck. Skull Clamp is absolutely busted in this deck because normally you need 1/1s to set it off, but if we create a copy of it with our commander, now we can spend 2 mana to draw 4 cards when we kill our 2/2 fodder creatures. Hedron Archive, Thran Dynamo, and Gilded Lotus. These are going to be amazing cards because we're going to end up mana positive on half of them, and on the other half we're going to be mana even, as long as we're creating token copies of them with our commander, right? This means the next turn, we're going to have an explosive turn where we have access to a ton of mana. Anarkar the Traveler. Now, we have a lot of very high-costed artifacts in the deck already, and we're adding a couple of them, so being able to cheat those cards out is going to be very beneficial to us. Cryptek is going to be solid protection in the deck, while also doubling as a way to protect our things that we need to sacrifice. Say we have to sacrifice a super valuable creature to our commander, Cryptek is going to make it to where we don't actually lose it, it'll just come back onto the battlefield. Ruthless Technomancer is going to be amazing to get our bombs back. We have a couple of 6 drops in this deck, so being able to cast this guy and being able to return 2 of them because our commander copied this guy is going to be incredibly impactful. Crypto Thrall, giving all of our artifact creatures hexproof. You just gotta love that. Now people can't target them. Joyra is just going to be a solid way to draw a ton of cards in this deck. Biden of Thassa can be super solid. Forcing someone to attack can be really powerful, basically making it to where all their shields are down. It can kill somebody. Additionally, we will draw a lot of cards whenever we are attacking into that player now. I'm a big fan of Fact or Fiction and cards that can really utilize their graveyard because it turns into 4 mana, draw 5. Weatherlight is just going to be able to dig us super deep, making sure we're getting to our key pieces. I like Windfall and Wheel of Misfortune here. I'll briefly explain what Wheel of Misfortune does because there's a lot of text on this card. Basically, everybody's going to choose a number. Let's just say someone chose 1, 2, 3, and 4 to make it simple. The people that chose 2, 3, and 4 will go ahead and wheel, discarding their hand and drawing a new 7. The person that chose 1 will not wheel at all, and then the person that chose 4 will take 4 damage. Audacious Reshaper. Now this one's going to be solid to just sacrifice all of our peon artifacts and hopefully get something big off the top. Now the damage might be relevant, but honestly there's such a density of artifacts in this deck, we can't take too much damage off this girl. Imri, this is going to be solid to not only fill our graveyard a little bit, but again it'll let us cast our artifact spells from our graveyard. And our commander does trigger on cast, so we will get the casualty effect off of our commander. Scrap Welder is going to be amazing in this deck. Now usually tokens have CMC 0, but not when you're creating a token copy of something. Whenever you create a token copy of something, the CMC is the same as the artifact you copied. So now we can use our artifacts that we copy, sacrifice them, and return stuff from our graveyard with lesser CMC. You're going to find that this is going to be an amazing tool to get your key pieces back. Reckless Handling. Now I like this because it's basically a tutor that, you know, rolls the dice. Maybe you have to discard that artifact, maybe you're gonna be fine, but half the time whenever we discard something, it's okay because we have ways to get it back from our graveyard in this deck. Let's move on to the cuts. Half of these cards were cut because they kind of fit in 3 different strategies. One of the strategies was artifacts, that's the one we went with, and then there was the villainous choice strategy, and then there was a third strategy that was just 3 exact damage to someone's face because that's kind of what the other commander did. So we are going to cut Vashta, Renegade Silent, Psychorox, and the Beast Deathless Prince, the Flood of Mars, the Master Mesmerist, Vizlor, and Rasilion. Santorin, the Veilyard, Time Reaper. I also cut Doomsday Confluence because there's just not enough bang for your buck, even though we are creating those Delic artifacts. Don't Blink is kind of a niche counter strategy. The Sound of Drums is pretty interesting, but honestly, I just wanted a high density of artifacts. So anything that could kind of feel dead in our hand, I went ahead and got rid of. Day of the Moon is kind of a pretty cool anti-token kind of card, but honestly, the token player will just kill your opponent, then your other opponent, and then when this goes away, they'll probably just kill you, right? It doesn't get rid of the tokens. Great Intelligence Plan. Now, I could see an argument for keeping this in the deck because it does draw you cards and cheat something into play, but in a scenario where someone's just like, yeah, sure, I'll discard 3 cards, it's 6 mana, draw 3 cards, which is just bad. The Ranny. Now, this is going to be an amazing deck on its own, just goading everybody's creatures sounds amazing, but again, it doesn't fit into the artifact strategy, so it's all a cut. Zygon Infiltrator. Again, I really like this card, but it's not an artifact, so it's gone. Hunted by the Family saw a cut for a couple of reasons. A bomb in someone else's deck is not always a bomb in your deck, so they could just be like, yeah, sure, create a token copy of that, and I'll just keep doing my thing and kill everybody. This card's kind of trying to be a board wipe that gets rid of all of your opponent's threats, but you'd rather just a board wipe 9 times out of 10 instead of this. These next cuts are all artifacts, but the bang for buck wasn't there in my opinion. Cyberman Patrol, Clockwork Droid, the Toy Maker's Trap, Midnight Crusader Shuttle, Cybermat, and finally we are cutting Wound Reflection. Now this card is a bomb, but again it's very expensive and could be a dead card early. Now it could win games, but honestly it's probably just more consistent to cut it here. That's going to do it for the deck tech upgrade. Remember guys, I am doing all 4 of these, so if I've already done one, go ahead and go look on my channel page for the other ones. And lastly, I would like to thank my patrons. I couldn't do it without you. You guys rock. As always, I hope this helped you in your deck building endeavors, and I will see you in the next one.